Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a graphic and web designer, and I work for a small agency in Alexandria, Virginia, Studio A, that specializes in doing design for museums and other art venues. And so we get to do a lot of book design, exhibition design, and we even do stamp design. But the reason I was hired in 2013, this agency wanted to add also being able to handle any web work or interactive work that came into the agency. So they wanted a designer that had the ability to do web design and interactive design, but also had a good design sense for print. And one of the things that happened at the studio a few years back was that you may or may not know that the museum world was one of the industries that was targeted when there was an increase in disability lawsuits. A series of galleries in New York City were targeted for not providing alt text on all their images. And I think the reason that the art industry was targeted was because it was something that was an easy target, because it was easy to pick on websites that had a lot of images, and if they didn't have the alt text, the galleries didn't have a lot of defense because of how long the Americans with Disabilities Act has been around, and the fact that it had been applied to websites back in 2010. So most of these galleries lost the lawsuit and spent a lot of money trying to fight these lawsuits, and some of the galleries ended up closing. So this was a wake-up call to the museum industry. So we suddenly started to getting a lot of calls about, the print products that we would develop for these clients, were a lot of times were being provided as a downloadable PDF from their website. We were kind of brought on to deal with the PDFs, or the print publications that were being converted to accessible PDFs. And so that's when I ended up taking additional training with PubCom to learn how to make accessible PDFs from InDesign. And while I was doing that and made aware of the issues with accessibility, I was a little bit disheartened to learn that the design community hasn't really been a leader in the space, that often the constraints added to our design, the limitations, make many designers opt not to worry about it. And I think that's kind of sad that we, I think as designers, we probably should be leaders in the space, trying to make sure that the things that we create are available to everybody, and not limiting it to those who don't suffer from disabilities. So I became more educated about the scope of the problem and why the problem had been persistent. And around that time, I wanted to go back to some of the websites that I had built, including the website for the studio, and see, how well I had been doing to do this myself. And, there was a lot of remediation that needed to be done. And in order to do that, I searched for tools to help me figure out what to do with the website, how to fix it properly. And I really found that there wasn't a lot there that was easy to use. It would require, a tool would scan just the home page, but then in order to move further, you basically had to do a consultation. It would probably be very expensive, and they weren't going to let you fix the code yourself. It was like you had to hand your code to somebody else, and then they would do it, and you pay them a lot of money. And that wasn't really going to work in the situation I was in. And also, if anybody's ever tried to read the WCAG guidelines, it's kind of not the easiest reading in the world. And I think when you're trying to do this, it's a little harder to just try to read the guidelines and try to apply it to your code. I wanted to build a tool that would be more helpful to designers. And so that's when I decided to work on this Chrome extension to see if I can build a tool that would be helpful to designers out there and help them make their websites more accessible, and of course help those with disabilities to navigate the web. So I think when I realized the scope of the problem, then it became something that I wanted to be a part of trying to fix. And so that's why I developed this tool. This is why I put a lot of energy into, releasing my code snippet videos on a daily basis to try to help people understand how to code and how to code properly, so that your code is going to build a website that's accessible and open to those with disabilities. And I myself came to design as a second career. I was actually originally an emergency physician. I'd spent a lot of time training. I had gone, through medical school and residency, and I was already working as an attending physician. But then I got several health issues, mostly related to an autoimmune disease. I tried to continue working in the field for a while, but I was at a disadvantage because of health issues, and eventually I got disabled from practicing in medicine. So, although my disabilities are not those that affect me in a way that I can't use the internet, I do understand that we need to do more for people with disabilities, that they should not have problems with opportunity because of their disability. And I think that we should really, as designers, be leaders in this space and help to make the web more inclusive of everybody. Presented by Designers Learn Code.